How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson, also known as Drewski these days. You can find both of us on X at Dalton_Trigg and at Coach Drew 33. The Mavs, they bounced back. One nice trend we have seen early on this season, even though the Mavs have three more losses than we would like them to. At least they haven't lost back-to-back games, which is a trend we saw last season a lot of times too. You know, when the Mavs lost a game, more times than not, they would come back and win, the next time they're out there on the floor. They don't let a loss really get to them. They don't let it keep them down. They come back and they get a win. And that's what happened on Wednesday night at American Airlines Center. The Mavs took down the Chicago Bulls. It was a blowout. 119-99 was the final score. I believe the Mavs were up by 30-something at one point. So, it was actually a little bit more of a blowout than what the final score reflected. They got off to a great start, which is something we have harped on early on this season. They won the first quarter 32-24, and then they never looked back. They won every quarter except the fourth quarter. After that, the fourth quarter was tied at 31 apiece, and that was mainly just because the Mavs didn't play their main guys for the majority of that fourth quarter because the game was out of reach. So, very good stuff overall. Very balanced scoring effort tonight from the Mavs, especially in the starting lineup, which is very encouraging because two of the main contributors, one starter, PJ Washington, and then Dereck Lively, who comes off the bench, both of those guys were out for this game. But the Mavs, they put up a very impressive, balanced scoring effort led by Luka, who had 27 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, and 4 steals in 32 minutes while shooting 8 of 19 overall. And he was a team high plus 35 on the night. So Luka Doncic did his thing in this one. So we have a lot to talk about. But what stood out to you the most from this game tonight?
To me, what was most impressive and really just a night and day difference was the offensive movement, specifically off ball. It looked like Kidd was really trying to get other people involved, other pieces involved early in the game. Kind of like we talked about, like he needed to do before or after last game's loss. That really stood out to me. I thought that Luka's body language was much better. I thought his defensive effort was night and day compared to what it has been. I mean, the 4 steals kind of tells the story, but I would like to know how many deflections he had in all, because the guy was just disruptive as hell. And he did a really good job of anticipating passes, specifically like in transition passes. And he really staunched a lot of transition opportunities for the Bulls just by anticipating where the ball was going and making other people's lives difficult. So, that's really what stood out the most to me. I thought that Naji Marshall had an outstanding game. After seeing him play tonight, it's going to be hard to argue against not starting him, because the guy is a starter caliber player, especially whenever he's on. Like I thought he was outstanding. I thought I saw some good things from Quentin Grimes. I thought that Daniel Gafford was really effective early. He showcased some low post ability, but he was just really good in transition and really good in the pick and roll. I know I'm just kind of gushing about things right now, but
another big scoring night for Big Gaff. 17 points. He was a plus 19 in 24 minutes as a starter. 7 of 9, had 7 rebounds. I mean, 3 blocks. I mean, he's balling lately. He kind of got off to a little slow start, there at the first couple games, but he's really come on strong here lately, especially, with Lively missing these last 2 games. So I'm very impressed by what I've seen from Gafford so far. And like you said with Naji, I mean, we talked about this during the game. I randomly text you during the game and just like, man, I love Naji. I love this guy. He just He does everything well, in my opinion,
Mhm.
except for finishing lobs and transition. There were a couple times that it kind of annoyed me because the Mavs tried to throw lobs to him like he's Derrick Jones Jr. And to me, Naji Marshall is a much better overall player than Dereck Jones Jr. But that's one thing that he's not that great at. He doesn't have the same helicopter athleticism that Dereck Jones Jr. had. So, they weren't able to connect on some of those lobs. But man, he's very sound handling the ball, especially in transition. We talk about how good Kyrie is in transition. When Naji gets it in the open floor, it's like, man, watch out. Tasmanian devil, tornado spinning. It's havoc, but he seems to be in full control of himself. It's very nice to see. The best way I can describe what we're seeing out of Naji Marshall in transition situations is like, how Josh Green had all that chaotic energy, but he never knew how to harness it. Well, Najee knows how to harness it.
Mhm.
so that's what we're seeing from him, and I love it. I mean, he's so active. He was 4 of 7 on the night in this game, had 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and he was a plus 18 in the game too. So, he didn't put up huge numbers tonight, but his impact on the game was very much felt throughout the game, and I love that. I love that every game here lately, he has had his fingerprints on it, and that's going to be big going forward. And to your point about him eventually starting, it's not a knock on Klay. Klay has been great to start this season. Tonight he was 5 of 10 overall, hit 3 of his 7 threes, had 13 points, 6 rebounds, and an assist. He's fine. He's been fine. He's shooting the ball good. He's getting open looks. Uh, but I look back to his stats from last season when his down year, which would be considered a great year if Tim Hardaway Jr. had the same year last year. Uh, I look back at it and it's like he was so much more efficient when he was coming off the bench for the Warriors. Now, in that particular situation, I understand why it would have been harder for him because that's the team you spent more than a decade with. You won 4 titles with them. There's an ego factor there where I can see where it would be so hard after starting for all those years and winning all those championships, coming off the bench for that same team. I could see where it would be hard. Now, in this situation, he's not making max money. He's on a team friendly deal. He's in a new situation. He apparently just wants to do what's best to win. If it's not going to be an issue in the locker room, you have to wonder if it would be better to bring him off the bench, have that extra scoring punch off the bench, and let Luka and Kyrie do their thing in the starting lineup with a guy like Naji Marshall, who doesn't have to score to be the most effective version of himself. So that's what I'm looking at, and especially with how the numbers have been so far. Let me look up this. My guy Bibbs on Mavs Twitter, he tweeted something a little earlier. I can't find it now, of course, but basically the Mavs death lineup, the small ball lineup of Luka, Kyrie, Klay, Naji Marshall, and PJ Washington has like over almost a plus 12 rating so far this season when they share the floor. Now, given that's a small sample size, it's only 24 minutes, but they've been great. I mean, and I think a lot of that has to do with the defensive versatility. I think if Klay comes off the bench and you don't want to go small and you leave that same lineup minus Klay, but with Naji and Dereck Lively, have Luka, Kyrie, uh, Naji, PJ, and Lively. I think that might be the ideal starting five, for the future of this season. And you can leave Gafford in there too if you want to, but as far defensive versatility and still having a lot of offensive firepower with Luka and Kyrie, I think that's probably their best bet. What do you think?
I go back and forth on bringing Klay off the bench, mostly because I don't know how it's going to affect him mentally. That's a conversation that will need to be had between Coach Kidd and Klay. And first and foremost that, and then second, they need to have a discussion with the whole team about it. I think that anytime you make a major lineup change like that, at this level specifically, I think it needs to be discussed amongst your professionals.
Yeah.
But I have an alternate proposition, and we've talked about this a little bit. While PJ has been outstanding on defense, offensively he's been a little lacking so far. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Naji is the defender that PJ is, because he's not. But he's just good enough to where I think you could get away with bringing PJ off the bench and having Naji play that 4 position. I think he's very dangerous offensively. He adds a new dynamic in that regard, as we've seen. You get to have both him and Kyrie Irving on the floor at the same time. And we know that they both play outstanding basketball together, specifically in transition. Those two thrive in chaos. The faster you play, the better they're going to be, or the more impactful they're going to be. And I think that he's just good enough defensively, just strong enough defensively, to where he's not going to make the big defensive plays that we're so accustomed to seeing PJ do. Like, he's not going to be sending people off the backboard. He's not. He's just not that guy. I mean, he can't catch lobs. We saw that today, right? Yeah. But he's strong enough and he's long enough to where you do have some versatility there. So, and then on the flip side, you're bringing PJ off the bench, who I think would have a chance to maybe win 6th Man of the Year.
I was about to say, maybe he can be the 6-man scorer. Maybe that would, ignite his offense that's been lacking so far this season.
It's possible. And you're bringing a really, really high caliber player in PJ off the bench. So I don't know. I think that Kidd needs to do some tinkering. But what we're really trying to identify right now is which lineup is the most consistent on both sides of the ball. And that's the lineup that you start. And unfortunately, we haven't played enough games yet to really determine that.
Yeah, typically, I mean, this really goes back the last several years, but I feel like Kidd usually gives it 15, 20 games or so before he, decides to make any drastic changes. That seems about the right sample size for him before he ends up doing something like that. So, we'll see. I think I hadn't thought about PJ as 6-man, but that could work. I mean, like I said, defensively he's been outstanding. We've said this on several pods that the way he's playing individual defense right now, he could get some all defensive team votes.
Mm-hmm.
If the Mavs can win a certain amount, if they can win enough games, he might be in that conversation. That's how good he has been defensively. If he can get that shot to fall, specifically that corner 3, man, what a weapon that's going to be for Dallas heading into the rest of the season and the postseason.
Well, then things change. If PJ Washington becomes a reliable threat from outside, then you bring Naji off the bench. I think that's an open and shut case. Right. The only reason that I'm looking at this right now is because PJ has been so unreliable on the offensive end. In fact, he's pretty much not even been a factor offensively. So if that changes, then my opinion changes. But I'm just going off of what I've seen in a very small sample size so far, which is all we can really do. And just, making opinions based off of what I'm seeing. And that's what I'm seeing right now. And maybe you're right. Maybe if you challenge a young player like PJ Washington like that, it'll be interesting to see what you get out of him. Because I think that Washington is a purely cultural guy. I think that he will do no matter what you ask of him. I think that we've seen that. I'm very hesitant to take Klay out of the starting lineup, and especially considering that he's been playing well. And another issue that you run into if you take Klay out and sub Naji in, again, Naji is a pretty good offensive player, and he's a pretty decent three-point shooter. But he's not the floor spacer that Klay is. And right. I'm looking at things from an offensive perspective because ultimately, in this league, it's all about scoring. You see what the scores that we're having, okay? I mean, you got teams losing, scoring 120 points. We did that the other night, right? I mean,
That's right.
you see where this is going. So, and it'd be nice to hold people down, but I'm just speaking realistically here. I don't know about taking Klay out of the starting lineup. I just don't think that it fits well with what we're trying to accomplish here.
Well, and I mean, the starting lineup doesn't really matter as much. This is almost a cliche thing to say, but it matters who finishes the games, and it matters what lineups get the most minutes throughout the course of a game. But if it's games like tonight where the Mavs get off to a good start and they end up winning the first quarter like they did 32-24, all of this is a moot point. Like you don't have to worry about taking Klay out of a starting line or even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can leave Gafford in there, bring Lively off the bench. As long as those guys bring the correct level of effort and attention to detail and get their team off to a good start, I think Kidd can stick with what he's got so far. And then maybe you just tinker the bench minutes and give, you don't have to start Naji Marshall, but I think you ideally going forward, you want him to play around 20 to 25 minutes a game.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. But and look, I mean the Bulls, they're not like world beaters or anything. They fell to 3 and 5 tonight. They were obviously missing some offensive punch because Zach LaVine did not play. He's hurt. But they, just like the other night we were talking about when the Mavs beat the Utah Jazz, and who was that other team they beat here recently? I'm already forgetting. We're so far. Orlando, who didn't have Paolo Banchero. But just like those two wins, this Bulls team, they have some pretty good players. Kobe White, Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, Josh Giddey. I mean, they have some people on that team that have experience, and they man, I'm looking at some of the shooting numbers. How do you say Ao Dosumu? Is that, did I say that right?
Yeah, I was having a hard time figuring that out whenever I was watching him.
That dude was 2 of 13 on the night and a negative 31. Josh Giddey was 3 of 9. Kobe White was 3 of 13.
Mm-hmm.
Vucevic was by far their best player shooting wise in this game at 7 of 10 overall and had 10 rebounds. So, again, I mean, they're going to have to prove that they can do it against higher competition, but it was nice to see them get off to a good start in this one. And if that happens more consistently, then you don't have to worry about making a starting lineup. So we'll see.
The key word there is consistency. And, while I agree with you, it matters who is on the floor at the end of the game. I think that, and we've discussed this, and I think that you probably think this as well, it's nearly as important to get off to a good start. The first quarter is almost as important as the fourth quarter, in my opinion, because how you start matters. Yeah. And I think that's the reason why we're harping so much on starting lineups, is because ultimately that's what's going to carry you through that first quarter. We need people out there that are going to set the tone and be consistent night in and night out.
Even if you don't win the first quarter, you have to at least be competitive in the first. You can't go down double digits in the first quarter like the Mavs have in 7. They, in the 3 losses they have, I have to go back and look because I'm not 100% sure on this. So don't quote me on this, everybody listening, but I'm pretty sure in the 3 losses the Mavs have had, they have been down double digits in the first quarter of each of those games.
That sounds right.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. And when you do that, you just set yourself up to play from behind for the rest of the game. You have to be almost perfect. And that hopefully they don't have to run into that too often. As the season progresses, guys get more comfortable, especially the new guys in the new system. And, I think they have a chance to do something special once they establish that chemistry. But we'll see. Kidd might have some tough choices to make if the consistency level isn't there over the next few weeks. All right, we're going to take a few minutes to pay a few bills. On the other side of this, we're going to wrap this up by talking about some end of the bench players that got to get some run in this game. Now, part of the thing with Dereck Lively and PJ Washington missing time is it creates minutes for other guys, and especially when it's a blowout win. So we'll talk about that on the other side. What's up, y'all? We're taking a quick break to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Want to play Prize Picks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code STEPBACK to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code STEPBACK on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay. Back.
We know something you don't. All right.
Good times during the ad break there. Okay. We're gonna jump to the end of the bench for the Mavs in this game because there were guys that got run who haven't been getting a lot of run lately, like Jaden Hardy, for example. He got 13 minutes in this game, put up 11 points, had 2 assists. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well from 3. He was fine, 3 of 7, but he was like one of 3 or 1 of 4 from everywhere. I don't know what the number is, but anyway, he was 4 of 10 overall, had 11 points, 2 assists. So he got a little bit more of an opportunity, and he did okay in my opinion. Who was like, Omax Prosper is who I wanted to talk about first, though, DJ, because he got 20 minutes tonight, which is what you'd love to see for a young player who is likely not going to be a part of the main rotation this season, but going into the next 2-3 years, he could become that. The Mavs are actually banking on that because as guys get toward the end of their contracts and especially veterans, you never know. I mean, like Quentin Grimes, for example, he is in the last year of his contract. He'll be a restricted free agent next summer. So if somebody offers him something that the Mavs think is too much to match and you let him go, you're going to have guys step up into roles that take those spots. And, Omax Prosper is one of those guys that they're looking at going forward. But in this game, he was only 3 of 8 shooting from the field, only had 6 points, but the energy was there. I liked what I saw out of him. I still think he's a little out of control at times, which is, that's kind of normal for an eager younger player with his athletic ability to be a little frantic at times. But I did like his energy tonight. And there was one play in particular where he got the ball on the far corner, and he ended up driving in and finishing. I thought he had a little bit of contact that didn't get called, but he finished at the rim. It was a nice thing to see from him. Now he's still got to work on his 3-point shot, obviously, but you can see some growth offensively from Omax. It's not big growth, but you can see a little bit there. And then obviously on the defensive end, he brings the energy all the time. It's Naji-like energy with him on defense. He's, even if he's not going over all the way to help somebody else, he's showing hard and he's making other guys think about it. So I really liked what I saw out of him in some limited time. And I'm glad he got 20 minutes because, that's the only way that guys are going to reach their full potential at those early ages is by getting experience. So hopefully there's more of these games later down the line where the Mavs blow out their opponent, and you get to throw Omax in there and get him some run. But what do you think about him specifically, and then Jaden Hardy getting a little bit of run too?
With Omax, the athleticism has always been there. That's never been a question. And this year, we've seen him add a little bit to his game, specifically in terms of ball handling and being able to protect the basketball, and that aids him in his ability to attack the rim. But what will tremendously help him is the development of a consistent jump shot. That way, people have to come out and get you on a closeout, and you can actually attack closeouts effectively. Without a jump shot, they don't respect you. They close short, and they're already in position to slide whenever you attack. Makes your job 100 times more difficult whenever you're a slasher. So, his main focus needs to be in improving his jumper and then developing the confidence to use it in game. Hardy, Hardy looked good at times tonight. Like you said, not a great shooting performance. He was pretty decent from three, but of all those minutes that he played tonight, how many of them were garbage minutes? How many of them actually mattered? Because see, Hardy and Prosper are in two different situations as far as their career is concerned. Prosper is just trying to develop. Hardy's wanting to be the sixth man of the year. So,
that's not looking too great for him.
it's not feasible. It's not feasible. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, all the Hardy fans. He's great, but it's just not feasible. Just especially not this year. Consistency. He's still just lacking. And I know I hate being a Debbie Downer on Hardy all the time, but it's true.
Yeah. Spencer Dinwiddie kind of nipped that in the bud. Right. I think it was game 2. When Dinwiddie had that good performance, and not game 2, that was the Phoenix game. It was the second home game that the Mavs played, and Dinwiddie was so good that Hardy got banished to the bench realm, and tonight was the first time we've actually seen some double digit minutes from Hardy in a long time. So look, it is what it is. I mean, Dinwiddie wasn't great tonight. He was 1 of 8.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't hit a 3. He was 0 of 6 from 3, and all that in 22 minutes off the bench. But he did have 4 assists. He did have 3 rebounds, and he ended up being a +5 on the night with 3 points.
See, that's the difference between him and Hardy. When Dinwiddie isn't scoring, Dinwiddie can still potentially make an impact with other facets of his game. When Hardy is scoring,
too.
Yeah, when Hardy isn't scoring, you're not getting anything out of him.
Yeah.
So,
and say what you want about Dinwiddie, like I know there was a time during that second season. It was the second season, the first half of that second season, when Jalen Brunson had left, so it was basically just Luka and Dinwiddie. He struggled more on the defensive end that season than he did the season prior. But now, there's not – you can see a difference in him, in my opinion. You can see a difference in him on the defensive end because he doesn't have as much pressure on him to do. Like, who cares if he goes 1 of 8? You won by 20 points. If you get any kind of point production from Dinwiddie, it's just icing on the cake. But I think not having that pressure on his shoulder to be a scorer for this team like he was in the past is helping him put more attention to detail on the defensive end. So I really like what I've seen out of him so far in that regard. Obviously, we don't want to see him go 1 for 8. Before the previous game, I think he had missed like his previous 8 or 9 shots consecutively. So he's struggling offensively so far this season, but it's still early. We're only 8 games in to the year, so he has an opportunity to turn that around. But overall, I mean, I was very pleased with this performance. Just like we said about the Orlando Magic game, this team is doing what you'd expect a good team to do. They're coming off a disappointing loss. They're playing a team that doesn't have one of its top scorer, and probably, yes, the top scorer, Zach LaVine, and you take care of business in a game that wasn't ever really close. And then you look at the percentages again. We've talked about the defense, and I wonder how much of this is like shot variance, like luck, because there is, sometimes you'll have a night where a team just hits everything on you and you can't do anything about it. But there's several of these games now, DJ, where I'm looking at these percentages, and like tonight held the Bulls to 41.9% overall from the floor, 28.6% from three. You do that, consistently, even if it's close to those percentages, you're going to have a very good chance to win on every given night, because the offense is obviously going to be there. That Pacers game, the Mavs scored 127 points and still lost. So, the defense wasn't there in that one. But I think that was a game, when we talked about it, where having Dereck Lively would have helped them enough to give them a better shot. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. There's a lot of basketball left to be played, and now this 5-game homestand is going to come to an end on Friday night, where they play the Phoenix Suns, who handed the Mavs a 114-102 loss in Phoenix in the second game of the season this year, a game where Luka went off for 40 points, but the Mavs missed a lot of chip shots, and they weren't able to pull that one out. So we'll see how they rebound and when they face Phoenix this time, because Phoenix, they are off to a very good start so far. The Mavs are 5-3 so far and currently sitting at 5th in the West. They're actually tied with the Houston Rockets and the Denver Nuggets. And the Phoenix Suns are currently sitting at the top of the Western Conference, tied with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Golden State Warriors with a 7-1 record. So that's going to be a very fun game at American Airlines Center on Friday night. Any closing thoughts, DJ, before we head out?
Just dealing with Phoenix, you got to just try to contain Kevin Durant. It's much easier said than done. The guy's going to get his. He's one of the most unstoppable scorers in the history of the league, if not the most unstoppable scorer in the history of the league. But we're going to have to do some kind of defensive scheming to try and contain him, because if we allow him to go off, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to come away with a win, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the point differential so far this season, and out of the teams that are 7-1, the Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder by far have the best point differential. The Warriors are plus 15.8. Now, they haven't played the stiffest competition either. I don't know if that's going to hold, but they have a great point differential. Oklahoma City is plus 15. Phoenix is plus 3.6. So that means, there's a lot of games that are probably closer than they should be. They give up over 110 points a game. So I think the Mavs will have a chance to get a win if they just pay more attention to finishing at the rim, because the Phoenix is going to let you get to the rim. So you got to finish. They don't have a Dereck Lively. They don't have Nurk. Big Nurk is he's very good around the basket offensively, but defensively he's not a shot blocker, and they will let you get in the paint.
Well, that's why I think that we need to really push the issue and try to get out and transition, especially whenever you have Naji Marshall and Kyrie Irving in the game, and whichever big man you choose, Dereck Lively or Daniel Gafford. All those three guys are really good in transition, and I think that you're going to force the issue at the rim if you try to create more transition opportunities. But where do transition opportunities come from? They come from causing turnovers on the defensive end or rebounding effectively on the defensive end.
Yes.
And that's a huge issue for us.
Yep. I agree. Yep. The Chicago Bulls tonight, despite the Mavs winning the points in the paint battle 60-48, giving up 48 is a lot better than giving up 76 to the Pacers. Like, I still can't believe that number. That's unreal. But the Mavs lost the rebounding battle. Now, I get it. You're missing two of your best rebounders in P.J. Washington and Dereck Lively, so that's expected. The Mavs lost the rebounding battle to the Bulls 51-47, but the thing that sticks out from those numbers is 14 offensive rebounds for the Bulls. So that's the thing. The Mavs non-bigs, the guards and the forwards, they have got to pay more attention to detail when the shot goes up, tracking that ball down,
Yep.
and not giving up all these easy, because I mean they're not even contested offensive rebounds is the problem. So
No, and we've discussed this before. A lot of it has to do with the point of attack defender just letting people blow by him and forcing the shot blocker to come up, who also just so happens to be our best rebounder. But another facet of this is you're getting a lot of long rebounds off of missed long shots. And guess who's responsible for those? It's your perimeter players, right? It's your guys floating around. So I think we would do well to lessen the amount of people who are trying to leak out on offense for easy, quick buckets. We call it cherry picking, and just committing overall to getting the defensive rebound.
yeah,
Send everybody to the glass, or send 4 out of 5 to the glass and have one person as the outlet. Whatever you got to do. Because clearly just sending 3 people or 2 people to the defensive glass, it's not working.
Yeah.
So
I mean the Mavs they can be good in either area. They're good when they push it, but you also have one of the best half court players in the world, in Luka too. So it might depend on the personnel you have out there on the court, but I definitely agree. Instead of leaking out and trying to get those cherry picking buckets, like you said, I do think they need to pay more attention to actually grabbing, not giving up these second chance opportunities, because it's like tonight it didn't matter because they're playing the Bulls, a team that doesn't have that much offensive firepower, but it could bite them in the butt later on, like a team against the Phoenix Suns on Friday night. So that's what I'll be looking for. I'll be looking for the Mavs to hopefully have PJ Washington back, hopefully have Dereck Lively back, and to have a more complete offensive and defensive effort against the Suns than we saw in the second game of the year. Well, guys, look, that's going to do it for another game recap. We are 8 games through the season. We're having fun so far. The Mavs, like I said, obviously you'd like them to be a little bit better than their 5-3 record shows, but it's very early. There's, you're a 4 or 5 game win streak away from completely changing how you feel about this early start. So we appreciate it, y'all. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Especially hit that subscribe button on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate it, y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your week.
thanks, guys.